Hello and welcome back to Elena Helps Teach. My name's Elena and I'm going to help teach. Today I'm making a video responding to a teacher request, which always makes me really excited when I can directly apply what I know and my past experience to helping other teachers feel more comfortable and confident in the classroom. So the topic that we're discussing today is how to communicate with parents of all different communication styles. When I was sitting down and journaling and preparing and just really drawing on past experience, what has worked for me in the past, what has definitely not worked for me in the past with parent communication, I really was overwhelmed by all the different variables. Your temperament, the parent's temperament, the child's temperament, your administrator's temperament, and their position on phone calls, parent phone calls, whether or not they're going to make parent phone calls. I have been in several buildings, and I have not had a single administrator that I hate their guts. That's just not how I roll. I don't agree with my administrators professionally on everything, and I don't have to. I really don't. I can get a whole lot done in a building, whether the administrator is pro kids and pro parents or whether or not they lock themselves in their office all day. Okay, and I've been in both situations. If your administrator is not regularly communicating with difficult parents on your behalf, that is a separate video that I am planning to make. How can you stay within your job description and communicate professionally with parents to the extent at which it is your job? Because there is a massive focus on teachers taking all the responsibility of communicating with parents off of the administrator, which I completely understand. The system that is in place right now requires that. However, it isn't your job. If you have a crazy parent, an unreasonable parent who's using threatening language, who is regularly having their child come to your classroom and telling you that you're going to get fired and all this stuff and nasty letters and nasty remind messages or class dojo messages, that is a school administration issue. So very soon, I would like to do a video empowering you on how to put some of those boundaries in place and hold your principal and central office accountable for dealing with parent communication. Because it is your job. Absolutely. And you can get a whole lot of parent communication done. You can figure out how to really find life and relationships with your students' parents, which I'm excited to talk about today. But if somebody's being threatening or you don't feel safe or they're eating up a ton of your non-professional time, honey, that is not your job. So, more to come on that. When we are talking about parent communication, you could literally be calling anyone as a public school teacher. You do not have a clue. When you're teaching in a private school that has a tuition and there's not a lot of scholarship opportunities, you can kind of get at least a mental picture of the type of person that you may be calling on the phone. When you teach public school, you could be getting in touch with anyone. You have the entire range of socioeconomic status, mental health, physical health, age. I have had teen parents. I have had parents in their 60s. Okay, you could be getting a hold of anybody, and you have to be open to that, but that can be intimidating. So I would say the most important part of a parent phone call is how you posture yourself. If you are so angry that you are ready to sit down and write a remind message that echoes some of the same feelings as the founding fathers when they were just trash talking England, if you think that your teacher bestie would be telling you you probably shouldn't send that remind, go ahead and don't send it. Okay, unless somebody has been hauled off in an ambulance, there is nothing that is so important in your classroom that is such an emergency that you can't take a second to breathe and show up as your best self. So my first wisdom from the heart would be, do not treat every negative parent communication as though it's an emergency. It isn't. You are dealing with live human beings that have a huge range of emotions, the parents and the student. Just in the world of humans, there's going to be negative interactions, and those aren't necessarily emergencies. So posture yourself towards the position with willingness to hear and professionalism, calm, ready to have a conversation, ready to get to the bottom of the problem. I never sit down for a parent communication without my notebook in front of me. Now, do I live out of my notebooks? Have I been known to be a notebook hoarder? Do I have a notebook ready to replace this notebook because there's only a little bit left? Yes. But I know where my stuff's at. Okay, so when I go sit down with a parent, I have a notebook and a pencil ready to jot down anything that parent says about that kid, even if it has nothing to do about the phone call. When you call a parent, you are getting a glimpse into their life. If they say, so-and-so hasn't been sleeping well for the last 2 weeks, you need to jot that down. So-and-so has been all of a sudden picking fights with her younger sister and they're going at it, cats and dogs, I can't figure out why, jot it down. If they say, we were all riding in the car, we got pulled over, and then dad got picked up on an old warrant and now he's in jail until the end of November, you need to write that down. Okay? Because from now until the end of November, that kid is outside of baseline. And we are now accommodating for outside of baseline. So you want to posture yourself as a professional who's in control, who's ready to listen. And then we're going to want to rebrand what it means to be in public school to the parent. So I have really rich relationships with my parents. That was a massive comfort to me as a public school teacher. Not every parent, but I would say 99% of my parents and I had a really good relationship. I did not struggle with feeling like parents hated me most of the time. I had some incredible parents who were encouraging. So I've had some real cheerleader parents. So don't let the negative out there about parents completely drown out that you have some amazing people, little ones and big ones, that you get to meet in this career. So enjoy those lovely people and remember them. Count them towards your total. Don't leave them out. But a lot of parents who struggle with communication have antisocial tendencies. Sometimes they have addictions. Sometimes they're doing transient work situations and we're doing swing shift. And a lot of times you're going to see the worst of parents come out when there's a custody issue. All of that stuff matters, just like it matters if it's us communicating. Okay, if you cut me off in traffic on a normal day, honestly, a lot of times I'm not going to notice because the ADHD runneth over. But if I do notice, I'm usually not going to care. If you cut me off in traffic on a day where I'm barely coping, you're going to see a completely different reaction. We want to stay with one set of values. So that's why I'm saying, Fran, if you are rage typing, set down the phone. Scoot away the laptop. You do not want to send a message that future you is going to have to do damage control over. Okay, this is the way that I think about it. If it cannot show up in court, if it cannot be used as evidence in your defense about how reasonable you are, about how inclusive you are, about how you teach the entire child, how you value parents, if it cannot be used to defend you in a court of law in front of a judge, do not send it. Don't. There's no need. You do not need to assume liability because of your own fear. Because really that's what it boils down to. fear. Calling parents is scary. Calling rough parents is scary. Calling back the parent that just left you a questionable email, questionable voicemail, questionable Class Dojo response, that's fear. Okay, you do not want to have a fear response on the record. Okay, so put it down. If it cannot be used as your defense in a court of law, close it. Okay, we want to rebrand public school for people who have really bad school experiences. If parents are struggling and have been caught up in the cycle, which is common, of generational poverty, they have already most likely had a horrible school experience. School is this little thing that's like back here chattering at them that nobody really gives a rip about. When you're really poor and you're really struggling, your kid's public school is no longer the priority. Maybe it should be, but it isn't. Because there's about 6 crises that you can think of off the top of your head that have to be dealt with today to keep the electricity on, to keep the water on. Are we having to move in with a family member because we can't live? Are we going to have to jump rent this month? Am I going to have to sleep in the car with the 3 days with the kids in between this and this? That's reality. So when you're feeling fear about having to communicate with parents, it might benefit you to assume that they are not having this reaction to talking to you about school. They might be really revved up in the same way occasionally, because it's easier to blame the teacher than to deal with the fact that their kid is dysregulated at school and that is shouting at them one more way, you're not a good enough parent. Okay, like they're trying everything that they know how to do, a lot of them, and it isn't working, and their kids are struggling and they are overwhelmed. I'm not saying that's every parent. Okay? That follow-up video is going to be about the parents that don't fall into that category and how you need to protect yourself and how you can protect yourself against that. However, rebrand school to them. Take school from being this background noise, chattering, horrible, I have to get these kids out the door to get them to school or they're going to get a truancy letter and so doesn't want to go and it's a fight every morning. Okay, they desperately need school to be more meaningful than that. And so talk about their child to them over time. I really noticed that so-and-so was having a hard time attending to reading for long periods of time. And then about 6 weeks ago, they really committed that they wanted to pass their 3rd grade reading guarantee. Over the last 6 weeks, I have seen your child grow exponentially in reading. They can sit and read for 8 to 9 minutes at a time without taking a break. They're getting very good at knowing when they need a break. They can retell me the entire story. That is so much growth in 6 weeks. At the beginning of the year, Leslie was having a really hard time with being kind to her friends. She was having a hard time not talking about her friends to other friends. It was making her social life very hard. She's been doing a really good job for the last 4 weeks of keeping it in track. She really healed some relationships. Things were going much better, but today Leslie fell into that same old trap. Talk about their child over time. It tells the parent that you are noticing and seeing their child every single day at school. And let me tell you what, friends, that's not how they felt at school. Okay, specifically if they were in that cycle of generational poverty and school was stressful, getting to school was stressful, not having the right clothes for school was stressful. Noticing, taking the time to verbalize that you see their child and you see how much they're growing or where they're struggling over time will help you create a connection with that parent, because that is how the parent sees the child. Okay. Point out the fun parts of their kid's personality. Okay, when you really talk to your students, I talk to my students constantly. They're talking all the time and I'm talking all the time. Some of that's because I'm wildly extroverted and that's how I gather all of my information. And some of that is because the more that you talk to them, the better they get at talking with each other. So if you can't tell any fun stories about little conversations that you had with a kid, you should be talking to your students more. One, you're missing out on the joy of teaching, in my opinion. That is, for me, is the bread and butter, baby. I love it. Okay, so you want to have meaningful conversations, and you want to be able to say, like, my favorite part of spending time with so-and-so is that they always see things from a different perspective. They're so creative that they see things through a lens that I cannot. They made a beautiful drawing that I hung up on the filing cabinet last week, and it was like this kaleidoscope, and she explained it to me, and it was wonderful. Okay, they're creative. They're really outgoing. They say what they think. They know who they are. All of these things, like, you can give examples for those, and parents love that. When you can give them evidence that they're creating a person that is going to be successful in the world, they want to hear it. So tell them, okay? Tell them the fun things that you have to say. Oh, say what gets the best out of their kid, okay? For example, we'll go back to the reading from earlier. Your child was really committed to passing their 3rd grade reading guarantee. We decided together he was going to take a divider and use that to help him stay private at his desk so he could stay focused. He's using a highlighter reading bookmark so that he can keep track of his lines. And he knows that he can get up and move around and grab a fidget if he needs it. Okay, tell the parent what gets the best out of their child. So you want to defer to the parent. You want to treat the parent as though they have something to bring to the table, because they do. So even if the parent is very busy, very stressed, living in this cycle of chronic having to put Band-Aids on everything because the water tower's about ready to burst and flood the town. Okay, so like we're trying to patch up a crisis all the time. Stress can go from an 80 to a 160 with one financial thing going wrong. Okay, so you needed to defer to the parent. Okay, you're getting a very intense glimpse of a very small part of a child's life. That parent, even if they're stressed, even if they seem out of touch, is going to know more about that child over the long haul in a lot of ways than you do. Okay, this whole idea of like these parents don't pay any attention to their kids and they're on devices all the time, and there's some truth in that. We have a dopamine addicted society for a reason. Okay? However, the parent is going to know what trends of behavior this child has experienced over their lifetime. You need to go to the office before you call about a student behavior and see if that was a behavior that they've had last year at another school before you get on a phone call with a parent. Okay? But yeah, defer to that parent. Offer them value in that conversation. Ask them things like, how has your child been sleeping lately? If they've had a change in behavior. Have they been eating enough? Are we having custody changes with mom and dad? Are you seeing them pick up in disagreements and aggression at home? Do you know what could be causing this behavior? When they do this kind of thing at home, what usually causes it? Asking them and expecting them to know an answer. And then if they don't know an answer, that's when you're teaming up and saying like, okay, so you know them better than anybody else. I'm trying to help them learn how to read. How can we come together and make a plan to help this kid be successful? You need to work as a team, and then you need to schedule a follow-up phone call. I know this sounds like we're in marketing, and you're like, how in the world do I have time for more phone calls? You only have to do this every once in a while. Maybe you'll have to do a touch-up. But when you do this, where you call a parent, you make a plan with them, you schedule it, you call them the week after and do a follow-up, the parent's going to forget that there's a follow-up. Leave a voicemail. That's totally fine. Hey, this is Miss Lohman. I'm just calling to let you know that so-and-so did really well this week with our goals that we set last week. On Thursday, we kind of lost our way, and then we made a plan and got right back on track. I'm looking forward to next week. I think we're going to do just fine. Have a good week. Bye. Voicemail. Leave them a voicemail. It's not a big deal. You want to be consistent. You want to be professional. I think that we get really overwhelmed with like all this parents versus teacher tension that's going on right now. The way that you're going to break that down is by calling and being different than what they expect you to be on the phone. Just in my personal opinion. So I wrote a script for you to help you with parent phone calls. If you are a first-year teacher, this might really save your tush. So I will type it out and then I will put it in the description box so that you can literally print it out, put it in your sub binder or wherever you put things that you will remember. Maybe it's the ADHD that thinks that phone call script should go into a sub binder. Put it where you want to put it. I support you. But this is the script that I came up with that I realized that I pretty much have used every time that I've called a parent since 2018 probably. So, hey, insert the parent's name. Rhonda. Hey Rhonda, I appreciate you taking my call. They don't have to take your phone call. They're at work, most likely. So tell them that you appreciate them picking up the phone call. Because there's a lot of parents that we complain that don't pick up the phone calls. Remember that when a parent picks up the phone call. Okay? Hey Rhonda, I appreciate you taking my call. I'm your child, Bobby's teacher. We met at Meet the Teacher where we discussed baseball. I wanted to get in touch with you because Bobby is having a hard time today. Okay, you are already saying your name, their name, calling on a past memory and telling them exactly why you're calling. You've used their name once and their child's name twice. As often as you can say their name, say it. They are struggling to and then tell the exact expectation that they're struggling to do. You should not be figuring out what the problem is with Bobby on the phone with the parent. Okay, for example, Bobby is having a hard time going to music. Okay, we line up at 11 to go to music, and it is 11:10, and Bobby's class is at music without him because he's still sitting in front of me and he's refusing to move. That's an expectation. Okay, if Bobby's refusing to move, I obviously cannot put my hands on Bobby. I'm sure as heck not calling my administrator until I've talked to a parent. But I'm also not taking my entire plan time because Bobby's having a sit-in. Nay. Okay? So you're going to want to say exactly what the problem is. You know your child better than anyone else. You need to tell Rhonda, I am calling you because you are the expert on your child. I'm the expert on educating. You're the expert on your child. You need to put that responsibility onto Rhonda because that is her job. That is what she agreed to when she decided to create a human life. Okay? I really like to handle things in the classroom myself before I get administration involved. You can say things like, usually this would have been an office referral already, but I really prefer not to do things that way. I could refer this to Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, but I like my students to be in class as often as possible, and the last thing that I want is your child to be in ISS tomorrow. So I called you so that we can work together so that that doesn't happen. And then, what do you think that we should do? You are now creating this teamwork environment. If your parent has nothing to say, which that is going to happen, I'm not going to tell you that this is going to solve all of your problems. Because you're going to have parents who say, well, I just don't even know. Or they don't even do that at home. First thing, that's possible. Different social situations bring out different characteristic traits in kids. Very possible. But if they have no darn idea, guess what? You've tried to deal with it. You have already collaborated with the parent on it. Now this is time for a behavior tech or the administrator to go ahead and do their job so that you can go do your job, which is like your plan time or teaching your class or whatever it is that this child has decided isn't happening because of their behavior. You need to put a lot of effort in on bonding with that parent, saying that parent's name, saying the student's name, making sure that that parent knows that the child is noticed, seen, and helped in your classroom. Because when you have a few conversations where that parent really starts to understand how attentive you are to their child, when they do something cuckoo, crazy, banana nuts man at the end of the year, like jump off of the landing and smash all of their teeth out on the monkey bars, that happened. I had such a strong relationship with those parents from having these kinds of conversations. The parents knew how attentive I was to their child, and never one time did the question like, what were you doing when my kid was jumping off never came up. Because they know how attentive I am to kids. So you want to posture yourself in that way. I hope that this helps you. It has a lot less to do with communicating with parents of different communication styles, and a lot more to do with you figuring out how you communicate best and then showing up in integrity no matter how uncomfortable it is. You're always holding the torch for pro-social behavior because we're trying to create good citizens. And for us to create good citizens, we have to be good citizens even when it's uncomfortable. So I hope this helps you. If you are interested in hearing about maybe how to put some boundaries in place with your administrator that are clear, that are not going to get you marked off on your evaluation, or, in your butt in a sling with somebody. Okay? Because public education does not like boundaries. Public education is taking advantage of their workforce in a way that I have never seen.